NEC outcomes and the decisions. SG?
Because I'm Samson Kwedemantashe, I'm going to be SG Emeritus. Thank you very much, comrades. Thank you very much to all members of the media who are here. The National Executive Committee of the ANC met in a scheduled meeting from the 26th to the 28th of February. The 26th we started late, as you will recall, because there was a parliamentary sitting that day and wanted to give space to parliamentary work, and we started at 5. And we planned to take 3 hours of that day and then continue over the next 2 days. That is what we did. And the meeting received the political overview from the President, the National Working Committee report on our engagement with traditional leadership and preparation towards the National Policy Conference. That is what we dealt with over this period. The NEC expressed grave concerns at the recent spate of brutal killing of women and children, and commissioned a special presentation by the Vet City Institute on gender-based violence with a particular focus on intimate partner femicide. We spent a lot of time there. Thank you very much to the Vet City Institute for a very detailed analysis and presentation on femicide. As a country, we must consistently affirm the freedom of girl child children and women. We have been successful in our quest to build a truly non-sexist society and dealt with the brutal effects of patriarchy when in South Africa, a young woman in the middle of the night can walk alone without fear of assault, attack, or rape, going back home from where she comes from. The emphasis is that it should not be fearful to walk at night for a girl child. You can walk at any time. While there is no single magic bullet that will do away with violence against women and children overnight, condemnation of such behavior by society alone will not resolve this problem. The ANC therefore called to action all its structures and society at large to become actively engaged in the campaigns that involve communities in the prevention of femicide, rape, and child molestation. ANC branches must actively lead campaigns to encourage the defense of the most vulnerable people in our society. We must also teach ourselves to drop the language of weakness, vulnerability, protection, women and children, as these erode women's citizenship. We must affirm their inalienable right to justice, safety, freedom, and equality. This campaign must assist us all to understand the value of life and that physical, mental, and sexual abuse robs people of their dignity. Accordingly, the following are the tasks for the branches. 1, they should establish street committees, lead and drive, and Know Your Neighborhood campaign, set up early warning systems where child abuse, rape, and abuse of girls and boys occur. Establish a single contact point in each street for reporting the incidences of brutality and violence. Meet every station commander to advise them of the contact points and issues arising from our early warning systems. Government, for its part, must strengthen the justice system to better deal with access to gender-based violence. Programs of the ANC-led government must target both victims and perpetrators. Among others, we must ensure the establishment of a special unit in each police station, specially trained for this type of work. This will ensure that we reduce barriers to reporting sexual offense and domestic violence. Our families must stop negotiating sexual cases, and women themselves must stop withdrawing sexual cases. and the law must be allowed to take its course. As a nation, we must redouble our efforts to reignite economic growth, to ensure that women do not seek economic refuge in abusive relationships. That is one area we spend a lot of time on over the weekend. The ANC has met with all three rating agencies as a matter of course, and also following the investment downgrade. The key message from these rating agencies is that we need to be clear on our growth story and on our political posture towards growth. In this regard, the NEC commits to the expenditure ceiling in the 2017 budget and commits to stabilize debt levels. In the meantime, we need to ensure progress in finalizing Mineral Petroleum Resource Development Act and the resolution of impasse relating to mining charter, and concerted effort must go into continuous improvement in good governance in the state-owned enterprises. We noted the promising work being done to stabilize the SABC and discuss the current challenges facing ESCOM. The NEC reaffirmed that the decision to reappoint Comrade Brian Mulife to ESCOM be rescinded and not to wait for the courts to direct them in this regard. Government itself encourages judicial overreach when it fails to lead when it should. As part of reigniting economic growth, long-term structural reforms are needed in education outcomes at all levels, including vocational training. There must be immediate work on growth and employment, enhancing interventions in the number of sectors. We must also deal with oligopolies and pay particular attention to increase investment to about 30% of the GDP. These measures will require the support of all our social partners, and accordingly, NC government with a matter of agency convened NEC meeting to engage them on these matters. The NEC also reflected on the period which had been politically hectic for the organization. Such a period we defined as having heightened levels of state of restlessness in society, requiring the ANC to develop an approach to provide leadership in this regard. The ANC accepted the proposal that was tabled in the political report for the establishment of a judicial commission of inquiry into allegations of state capture without delay. The terms of reference of such a commission of inquiry must be broad enough to uncover the influence of business on the state. The NEC expressed its desire to see processes of reviewing the public protector's state of capture report accelerated so that they are not an obstacle to the speedy establishment of the Judiciary Commission of Inquiry into state capture. On the motion of no confidence against the President proposed in Parliament, the NEC reaffirmed its confidence in comrades deployed as members of Parliament, trusting that they would continue to conduct themselves in line with the Constitution, prescripts and norms of the ANC. Regardless of whether a secret ballot is granted or not by the court, ANC MPs, as always, are expected to vote in line with the decision of the caucus of the ANC. We're reminding them of Rule 2517 of our Constitution, which defines an act of misconduct as acting on behalf or in collaboration with counter-revolutionary forces, political organization or party other than the organization or party in alliance with the ANC, in a manner contrary to the aims, policies, and objectives of the ANC. We're reminding them on that. On succession debate, the NEC acknowledged that to continue to assert that the organization was not in grip of leadership election fever was foolhardy. The NEC agreed that we should continue discussing the principles that should guide election of leadership in the ANC, but allow the structures of the ANC to start discussing the names. But such discussions should be based on the principles discussed and through the eye of the needle. Nomination will only be opened in September 2017. All these activities dealing with succession should be monitored, and as comrades discuss the names, nobody should ridicule or defame any other potential candidate. In other words, we're not opening the nominations, but we say you must be able to discuss the names of comrades and test that name against the principles and through the eye of the needle as the framework. That's what we're saying. Kondo of Veterans, Military Veterans Association, MKNVA, is due for its national conference this year. The ANC NEC has delegated 10 of its members to support and assist MKNVA in the organization of such a conference. We have an interest in a successful MKNVA conference. On the tensions within the alliance, the NEC emphasized that we should never tire in seeking to work for the unity of the ANC, unity of the alliance, and unity of society as a whole. To this end, the Alliance Political Council will meet on the 4th and 5th of June to deal with the different and challenges facing the alliance partners. Many things in the public will sit around the table for 2 days and engage on those issues. There was a call made in the NEC for President to consider stepping down as President of the Republic. This will consider to be part of the broader discussion characterized by the restlessness manifesting itself in society, which have made similar calls. We're making this point to disabuse all of you of this notion that we sat there for 3 days only discussing that item. That's not the issue. If we follow all the media reporting all over, it seems as if we sat there discussing the president. A number of members of the NEC were of the view that the NEC should listen to this call. Various contributions in support against the appeal to the president to step down were raised. Many more were neither for or against the appeal, but emphasized the need for unity within the organization. The NEC sought to have a detailed analysis of the consequences of removing its sitting president, appreciating that some calls, especially those made by the opposition, are not so much about removing the president, but rather dislodging the ANC itself from power. We are not saying that out of analysis. They verbalize it. It's not about the president, it's about the ANC itself. So we're emphasizing this point so that members of the ANC should never be fooled to think that it's only about one person. It is about the African National Congress. That's what all this is all about. The NEC concluded the matter by recommitting itself to focus on the task at hand and what our people expect from us, implementing, refining, and advising policies that solve their problems of inequality, poverty, and unemployment. As we move towards the National Post-Conference, we must also focus on ensuring unity and stability of the organization as part of leadership transition at the 54th National Conference. Flowing from the difficult discussion, our branches are now directed to focus on their primary task, work together, ensure that the ANC impacts positively on society. The ANC discussed at length the need to reconnect with sectors of society that are drifting away from the movement. This is particularly important for those who have been traditional allies of the broad liberation movement, including some traditional leaders, section of faith-based community, led among others the SABC. We are aware and appreciate the need for decisive action from the NEC, indicating renewal and our commitment to deal with issues that bring the organization into disrepute. To this end, the NEC welcomed the ongoing interaction with Kondalesa and the traditional leaders in general. We have also committed to continue engaging with the SABC as part of the broader society dialogue on challenges facing South Africa. The NEC welcomed the appointment of Dr. Tedros Ghebreyesus as the new Director General of the World Health Organization. This is the first time in 69 years that the World Health Organization elects an African to its helm. This is a significant victory for the continent and a significant pointer of progress and reform of this global multilateral institution. As we conclude Africa Month, the NEC committed itself to our responsibility to contributing to the building of better Africa and better world. The regeneration of Africa is yet to be accomplished. Beyond our own internal challenges and interests, as a party and as a country, we have a bigger role in the continent as the ANC and as South Africa. Thank you very much.
Thank you, SG. Shall we, given the number?
Now, we take no questions today. But you are those who raise their hands before you even ask for them.
That's so undemocratic. Given the large number of us present here today, so we will try to get as many questions as possible. Perhaps one question per media house, it may help. So if you can just ask one question, it may just help because we're quite a large number. May I start with you, Natasha? No, I can't hear you. There's a roving mic.
Thanks, Natasha from the Business Day. Just a quick question of clarity. Does the NEC support a judicial commission of inquiry state capture as described by the Public Protector's report requiring the Chief Justice to appoint the judge to conduct the inquiry? Thanks.
Thanks, Natasha.
Hi, Gabrielle Steinhauser from the Wall Street Journal. Did the President respond to this request for the establishment of a commission of inquiry, and what was his response? Thank you.
Pass to your right. Just for clarity, so that that question does not arise again, we're reporting on the outcomes and the decisions, not who said what in the meeting. I just thought I should remind you, because even last time I had to remind members of the meeting, we're not presenting minutes of the meeting, but decisions. Please proceed, Ranjani.
My name is Ranjani Mansami. I'm from the Daily Maverick.
On the outcome of the NEC, I'm not too clear what was the outcome of those discussions. I'm not too clear on what was the outcome of this discussion on the President. Did he give an explanation of his role in the email saga? And what was the nature of his threat to NEC members who continue to raise concerns about his conduct and leadership? And Secretary General, I just want to find out when you will be instituting disciplinary charges against the President and ministers in the state who have betrayed the mandate of the ANC and serving the agenda of people outside the ANC. Thank you.
Just behind you, Ranjani. There's a gentleman behind you.
From Reuters News. I want to know, did the President acknowledge the consequence of his cabinet downgrade, of his cabinet reshuffle as causing the ratings downgrade? Did he specifically acknowledge the impact, and did he accept responsibility for that?
This press conference is going to be very short. Before it is. Can you pass it front to SABC?
I'm Tsebo Irene from the SABC. On the issue of Brian Molefe, you're calling that his redeployment back to ESCOM be rescinded. That does mean that you've also instructed the Minister in Brown not to contest the issue before a court is brought by the opposition parties.
Pass to Similar.
Thank you. Just
a second. The SG is not as fast as. Please
Two
proceed.
questions.
Please proceed.
One, you're saying there was a view that the call for the President to step down is not just about one man, but it's about dislodging the ANC. In the discussion, what was then concluded in as far as that call is coming from some within the ANC? Are they party to these efforts to dislodge the ANC? And what did you then say as a meeting to them to say cease and desist. And my second question is about the Commission of Inquiry. What did the meeting say to President Jacob Zuma, who is taking the state of capture report on review? Did you say to him, appoint this commission right away while you're challenging the principles that you're challenging? How did you navigate that? Because he's taking it on review, particularly where he's not happy, which is well within his rights. Thank you.
May I ask for a statement to be distributed? I think some of the questions are answered in the statement. Electronically. Can you just check electronic? The statement is already available. I think some of the questions are already answered in the statement.
My name is Mtagani from SABC. SG, I want to know as to whether you discussed the terminal reports which circulated yesterday about the terminal reports, about the, things like the Minister of Cabinet sharing cabinet minutes with private business individuals. One thing is that I want to know whether yesterday's reports on Sunday papers were discussed in the NEC. I'm taking into consideration that...
You're asking for discussing newspapers yesterday?
No. The terminal reports which are in newspapers, not necessarily the reports which affect each and every South African citizen. Like things like the Minister of Cabinet sharing minutes with, the classified minutes with private business.
Okay. Something?
I'm Sarah from Jakarta. My question would be in line with my colleague here. Are you not worried about what is being disseminated or being said about your own party and government within the public discourse, and what you refer to as the battle of ideas, in terms of what was in the papers yesterday? Because that was pretty damning. Don't you see that as a PR disaster for the ANC here at the Zulu House and for President Jacob Zuma and his cabinet? And how did they respond within the ANC to those, I'd rather say, allegations that were made against him in these papers that were circulated on Sunday? And the last question would be, the Minister of Coxages from Roy, speaking today, spoke rather that President Zuma leads the masses that are not particularly on Twitter, which would suggest that the ANC, or him in particular, may not view the so-called middle class as an important voting bloc for the ANC. What's your overall view on it? Thank you.
Thanks, Kotani. I'll come back to you later. I'm going to take some executives from SANEF. You will be like the sweepers. SG?
I think I must start by giving a simple outline of how the NEC works. That would help, because sometimes I have a sense in the line of questioning that people think that we sit there like an inquiry and call individuals, question them. That's not how the NEC works. The NEC discusses issues in broad terms, in political terms, and analyze them and try to come to determinations. So we don't call Tulas to come and account, or when there is a report on newspaper, call that minister, the newspapers say about you, to get my point. That's not how the NEC works. It wouldn't work in any way, even if we tried that, because it's a gathering of 110 members. Now, 110 members can't sit like a jury. There are too many for that. Anything that requires that kind of inquiry gets referred to particular relevant committees of the NEC. I think I must clarify that. Natasha asked whether the NEC support the Judicial Commission of Inquiry as proposed by the Public Protector. We didn't discuss the report of the Public Protector yesterday. Okay. We discussed the issue of a Judicial Commission of Inquiry into state capture. And the NEC agrees, please, President, establish that Judicial Commission of Inquiry, because we need to understand that There was even a debate of whether it should start in 1994 or 1948 or what year and so forth. And we said no, at best it should be beyond 1994. If we need a further inquiry on what happened on state capture between 1948 and 1994, we should establish a different kind of inquiry to that. Those are the details we went into. But what we're interested in is not only to justify the findings of the state of capture report as reported by the Public Protector, is to understand the depth of the involvement of business in influencing government. Therefore, the state capture goes further deeper than what is in the Public Protector's report. We think that we should get a detailed report in the extent of business influencing state in making their decisions broadly, beyond just what is in the Public Protector's report. Did the President respond to the call? Let me simplify it. We are in a meeting of the NEC. There are these calls. Others oppose this call. It is not a call for a vote of no confidence in the NEC. It's people in making their inputs, making a call that the President must consider taking a decision to step down. Others say it will not work for us. And others say the focus is wrong. We're just following the flavor of the day, and there's a detailed discussion on that issue. And therefore, the President commenting on that issue is not a response or otherwise of it. He comments on the issue on the closing of the meeting. That's it. And that is not what the NEC is about. The NEC is about how do we feel as a structure of the movement about this call. And that's why we say the element of listening to the call made by broader society is quite important to us, more than just the narrow debate in the NEC. And that's why in our statement we're saying we will meet the SACC, we'll meet traditional leaders, we'll meet various sectors of society. If SANEF calls us to a meeting, we'll meet SANEF on these issues, debate the issue, because we don't think it's about yes or no. On the outcome of the call, what about the threats? I don't know about the threats. Maybe in my nature, I don't get threatened by people talking in a meeting of the ANC. So when you talk of threats in a meeting of the ANC, I will not understand that concept, because in a meeting of the ANC, people make their statements in that meeting. And that's why the question of taking the president and ministers to the disciplinary committee, if it was in a court, who was raising this question? No, it's not you, Ranjan, it's somebody else. Whether we'll take the president to court, to a DC, if it was in a court, I would tell you that, and I was a magistrate, I would say, that is a leading question, Your Worship. You see. You know the point? My learned friend, that is a leading question, because we are dealing with a complex situation. You want us to say, yes, we'll take so and so to his marriage.
I want you to say that, because it's a clear violation of the disciplinary
Okay. Wait, Ranjan. I get worried when a senior general who has been around for some time gets agitated in a media briefing. I get worried about that. I'm expecting that from the younger journalists. I'm saying, how will you take anybody to marry cases? The worst thing that we could do as an organization is when we discipline people, we call press conferences. It will be the worst thing we do. So we're like any other institution. I would imagine that your media house, when it disciplines you as journalists, if you call a media briefing, it would be a disaster. You will actually take it to the CCMA for violating your own right. We don't do that. We have cases here, many We listen to many cases. One of the things we don't do about cases is to call media briefings. If it's a significant case, we only call a media briefing to announce the outcomes. Because if we do that, you know what, we will complicate our space in the sense that by the time we go to that process, we'll all be called to recuse ourselves because we've announced a particular role in the hearing of a disciplinary case of an individual member of the ANC. So I think that question is an unfair question to ask whether so-and-so will be disciplined, so-and-so, because the next thing will be, what will be the outcome of that DC? Will be prejudiced. Did the president acknowledge the role in the downgrade? In discussing the downgrade, we're not in a blame apportioning game. That's not what we tried to do. We said we have been downgraded by 2 rating agencies at least. There will be other results in June. I would imagine that Standard & Poor will release their next rating this coming Friday, and many others will. We've met all of them. Fitch, we've met Moody's. We're expecting their results in the month of June. In doing that, we always come to a point that says we should not do things for the rating agents. We must do what is right for the country. Where we commit mistakes, let's correct those mistakes, because rating agents are rating us on the work we are doing. They're not rating us on whether so-and-so did this or that. They rate us on what we do. If they talk of political uncertainty, they will talk about the reshuffle, they will talk about that, they will talk about a number of issues in the political space, and we must correct all those issues that are highlighted. If it's growth, we must be clearer on our growth language, what we want to do. Our growth story must be concrete. If it's fiscal prudence, we must be clear on fiscal prudence. So if we can start putting faces to problems, we'll not be able to resolve problems, because we'll have to deal with the individuals. And in the process, totally kill our ability to deal with the problems. Rescinding Prime Minister's decision, did we instruct the minister not to contest the court? No, we did not. All we did was to say to the minister, resolve this issue before it goes to court yourself. That's all we say. How you resolve it, we can't determine that for a minister. All we say, minister, resolve this matter before it goes to court, because this thing of being unable to take decisions on issues that are under our jurisdiction, failure to take decision translates into judiciary overreach. Sometimes that judicial overreach is unnecessary, it's excitement in society, but on the other hand, it can be a function of omissions and commissions on our part. And we say, correct that issue, don't wait for the court to instruct you, because once the court instructs you, we'll say it's judicial overreach, but we should be able to take that decision ourselves. That's what the NEC said. Did we, with the call for the president being part of dislodging the ANC, what was that? Yeah, ANC. Yeah, I'm dashing now. Now, what we are saying on this issue is that the opposition forces are very clear about their objective. It's not about just removing President Zuma. It's about dislodging the ANC. That's what we're saying. And we're saying we're not doing thumb sucking on this matter. You listen to the various leaders of the opposition, what their line of argument is that it's not the president, it is the ANC. And therefore, what we're saying, we must be able to deal with those issues, minimize mistakes that we commit, because it is our own mistakes and our own goals that open us up to the opposition forces. That's what we're saying. In other words, all of us must reduce the space for the opposition to come into us by default because we're committing mistakes. The reports on the Sunday newspapers, no, we don't do that in the NEC. We don't have a Sunday and then put all the newspapers and say, City Press says this, Sunday says this, Sunday World says this, and somebody, there are many things that come in those newspapers. That is not what we discuss in the ANC. But I would imagine that in debating in the NEC, what comes out of the newspapers become part of the content of what members of the NEC use in the argument in the NEC. That's what happens. But we don't have a specific session that say now it's time for current news. Let's go to the newspapers. I normally see that on television every morning. Newspaper headlines, this. That's not how the NEC works. But I would imagine that individual members of the NEC, in arguing in the ANC, will build in what they have read in the newspapers. I will not worry about what is said about the ANC in the newspapers. We're worried about anything negative that is said about the ANC. We're not worried when the story is positive. That's it. If the story is negative, we get worried. How do we deal with that negative story? If the story is positive, we hope that it can be repeated 10 times. That's how it is. If it is negative, we wish it can die quicker. When it is positive, it can be repeated over and over. It's good for the ANC. Minister of Copter and the president talking to people who are not in social media. I will not worry about the middle class. I can tell you that 2 weekends ago, I was in a village called Midstream, where Centurion and Egurulen meet. I spent the 5 hours with intellectuals, 30 of them, in a house meeting. I'm working on another one now because I found it quite interesting to work with them, talk to them in a house meeting. They are not going to come to a rally. They're not going to come to a general meeting. But if you go to a house meeting, you have 30 of them, 40 of them, I come and talk to them. That is the middle class, and it requires a different approach in acting with them, because they don't want us to listen to you and go home. They want to interrogate you and actually sometimes be rude at you. And as I go there, I prepare my mind and say, nobody has ever been sullen because has been insulted. And you go there, they tell you all sorts of things. You listen carefully, you correct them, you take time, you spend hours with them, the better. I wouldn't mind if any of you can organize a house meeting, invite us, we'll come. Ask us the difficult questions. That will not be answered appropriately in a media briefing, but in a house meeting, we can come, you ask us all the questions, you explain them in details. That's how we are. So it's not a question of when you go to the villages and talk to a rally, it's because you don't care about the middle class, but it's quite an important constituency, those rural villagers who are going to those rallies, and we talk to them. But talking to the intellectuals, it works better in closed environment where you answer the questions in details, you engage, they come back, you respond to the questions. Thank you, sis.
I think the question about commission. What are you saying about the commission vis-a-vis the president challenging
the report? If you read our statement, it says any people who are reviewing that report of the public protector, we are asking that those processes should be accelerated because they should not be used as an obstacle to the establishment of a judicial commission of inquiry. Not only the president, anybody who's affected there who is reviewing that report, those processes must be accelerated. That appeal goes not only to the individuals but also to the relevant department, particularly the justice system, that the justice system must accelerate the review so that it should not be used to delay the actual establishment of a commission of inquiry which can do an in-depth investigation into all the allegations.
I can see now veterans have their hands up. I'll start with you, Stephen Hodges. Matlatsi at the back. Now I can't see you because you're wearing. Oh, but Eric, Kunjan Put. Good to see you. Please proceed, Stephen.
Thank you very much. Stephen Curtis, Eyewitness News. Afternoon, Secretary General Zizi Cordwa. May I ask Mr. Montashe, this is a statement released by the Stalwarts just before this press conference started. They say this: there is little doubt that the most vociferous support for the President would naturally have come from those most directly involved in the project of state capture and the associated web of factionalism and corruption. This group has yet again shown they clearly place their own narrow political and financial self-interests above those of the future of the ANC and to the detriment of the best interests of the country. Can I ask how their analysis is wrong? Thank you.
Thanks, Steve. Ranjani, there's no second round. Right at the back, Matlatsi. There's one media house that is not asked. Bloomberg, yeah. I know you can ask about rating agencies. Matlatsi, please proceed.
Thank you very much, Zizi Matlatsi, News 24. SG, on the issue that you debated around what you call the request for the President to consider stepping down, does that mean that that debate is now over within the NEC and can never be raised again? And then my second question relates to also the stalwarts who have written to you ahead of the NEC, still insisting on a consultative conference. Was that considered in any way, and is there a final decision on that particular matter? And I just wanted clarity on why the decision on 94. The PP's report focused largely on the Gupta family. Are you suggesting that there could be other influences on the state that should be investigated, and you're looking specifically at the time that you came into power? Thank you.
Thank you. Proceed, sir. Vui, when's enough?
If you can hear me, say that. Sfiso Masam, ANC, not Fox News. Thank you, Zizi.
Please proceed, Sfiso.
Thank you, Zizi. I want to find out, ANC didn't expose last week Friday on the IFMS looting treasury. We know of a CIX report where lots of money, billions of South African taxpayers was looted. The Competition Commission continues to release documents on bank looting, rand stealing and manipulation. But the ANC has only commented on what is called the state of capture report. Is there a reason why you have overlooked other reports such as the CIX report, the Treasury report, and others? Thank you.
Please, with Eric, and then you pass to Sismo Iponi.
Okay, thank you. My name is Eric Naki from the Citizen newspaper. There is a question that was asked here, SG, which I think you will not answer properly by Tula Sizwe. The calls for President Zuma to step down were not only made by the opposition party, but by senior members of the ANC, including the veterans. Are you implying that these people are involved in efforts to topple the ANC?
Mipon Manafani from Sowetan. The President is implicated in the Public Protector's report on state capture. Is he, the President, is implicated in the state capture report? Is the ANC expecting that he must establish the commission? And if so, he's implicated. How is it possible, or is there a team that is going to help him to come up with a commission?
Thanks, Mike. The last hand from Sanef again. You can't raise a hand right at the end. It's like you're waiting for others to ask him.
Come on, Irene told you from the Mail Guardian. SG, my question refers to opening up the discussion on the succession debate to the branches. At Mangum, in your organizational report, you highlighted the fact that 80 branches were in several instances moribund. They were taken over by careers. The issues around voting banks, the issues around gatekeeping at these branches, and this echoed your predecessor's organizational reports. How confident are you as SG that this debate, if it is open now, will be free, will be fair, that there won't be sort of armed men at branch meetings stopping people from attending and voicing whatever opinion that they have? Thanks.
Thanks, I pass it to Kokeli.
Thank you, Zizi. It's Sam Kokeli from Bloomberg News. SG, please help here. I would imagine before you went to the NEC, you'd had the chance to look at the mining charter, which has been accepted and approved by Cabinet. What is the ANC's take on it? Are there any aspects that you are worried about, happy about, the mining charter? Thank you.
Thank you, SG. Zazokubeleza mphakathi noko baza kucingela ku Monday namhlanje, you've got other responsibilities. Ngubani lo disruptor i-press conference ye-ANC?
Umkhokeli lo uwise Mike. Stephen, you see, every day I at least read a chapter of anything. On Saturday, I was reading a chapter on the war of hope. The hope was a magistrate in Kumbu who was killed by Mambondo Mesa sometime back around 1881. I read that, and reading this series, having just completed 3 series of Jomsobo Makoma Tula Sizwe, has made it clear to me some of the debates that we're having today are very superficial. So I'm leaving that at that. I want you to take an interest in those series. They're small. You can read one a day and finish it and read another one the other day. Very superficial. I will come back with that when we discuss the land question. Okay, I'll come back with that when we discuss that. The statement of the stalwart support of the president come from beneficiaries. That's how I summarize. One thing that I've learned in my short experience in politics is that the worst thing you do as an active political activist is to pass judgment on any individual, because it comes back to bite you, because one time a Secretary General of the ANC was removed from the position. Many people were motivated that he was a drunkard. Yeah? And we discovered much later that actually many of them were more drunkard than him. So I'm making that point that I don't like talking to judgment by individual, that if you take a particular position, you are a beneficiary. If you take a different position, it's because you wish to be a beneficiary. So, Stephen, I don't want to pull that statement of the stalwarts at face value. I think we must deal with the problems and challenges facing the ANC and access any wisdom around us. Any section of the ANC that prophesizes to be having a monopoly of wisdom is not going to be very helpful, because it will deprive us of wisdom that is located somewhere else in the organization. I want to leave it at that, Stephen. Is the question of asking the president to step down over and will never be opened again? I'm not sure if we should make a judgment on that. We had that debate in November last year. We had it this weekend. Any attempt on my part to be a prophet who can say this will come back in 2 years' time or in 2 months' time will be presumptuous of me. The reality of the matter is that there was no such an item on the agenda of the NEC. Okay, there was no such item in the agenda of the NEC. But in the process of people making statements, commenting on the report table before the NEC, they make this call. Now, so if we say it will never come back again, it's closed forever, I will be saying we must set up an infrastructure that says if you want to raise an issue in the ANC, it must go to a censorship committee of the ANC to check what are you bringing. People talk when they're in the NEC, issues come into the agenda through the discussions in the NEC itself. So I can't make that declaration that is gone forever, it will never come back. Why do we open in 1994 when the public protector focused on the Guptas? It's because if I'm captured by somebody else other than the Guptas, I'm not better off than people who are captured by the Guptas. That's why we opened it in 1994. We say, let's drill deep and understand the extent of the influence of business on the ANC. And if we can have a commission that does that for us, the ANC will be a better organization. In that process, it will deal with the area of the public protector, but it will go beyond just what the public protector was investigating. Because public protectors sometimes only investigate cases that are referred to them. Now, the question of state capture can only be limited to the case referred to them. NN7, not
Fox News. ST, you might not know about it. No.
News is it?
No.
A media briefing is not a time to settle scores. Invite him for a drinking session, but the cost of wine is on you, eh? Oh, go again. If it doesn't work for the first time, go again. The ANC has not only focused on a particular report and ignored others. It does not. I can tell you for information that there is a determination which is internal on the CIX report. It was debated in this NEC, and there's a decision. We will report back when the process that has been set in motion has completed it. Okay? Uvile mfondini? Uvile? Okay. Awunakwazi asikakunikile report sithi said, because I Skype NEC said, we had that report, talked about it, and agreed on a process of getting deep into that one. But because we was putting a process in motion, we are not reporting about it here. When that work has been done, you will hear us reporting on the outcome of that work here. Okay. The call for the president to step down doesn't only come from the opposition forces. We didn't say that. We didn't say that. All we did is that dialectically, far left and far right sometimes become very close to each other. The only difference is that they took different directions to reach a particular point. That's all we're saying. But we're saying, in the case of the opposition forces, the message is clearer that the intention is to dislodge the ANC from power. And they say themselves that it is not only about President Zuma, it's about the ANC. That's what we're saying. We're not accusing veterans of collaborating with those forces, but we're saying the outcome of the efforts can converge on the consequences. That's all we're saying. State of capture, implicate the president, can he put together a commission? I always hear this question. What I never get, and I wish I can read about it, even tomorrow, how is a commission of a judicial commission of inquiry put together? What a constitutional state, what does the Constitution say? Where is that responsibility given to? Should we, because we are suspicious of the incumbent, tamper with the constitutional provisions? I will read a feature article on any newspaper tomorrow that clarifies that point. State of the branches. Why don't we get branches? Presidency. Can I tell you one thing that is very clear in the constitution of the ANC is that in a conference of the ANC, at least 90% should be branch delegates. Okay. Any conference of the ANC. Now, it says 90% of delegates to a conference of the ANC should be branches. And that's why before any conference of the ANC, we'll audit our branches. When we come back, we'll say that, yeah, there are these weaknesses, but they are branches of the ANC. It is those branches of the ANC that make us a wall-to-wall organization. The ANC, different strands, is present in every ward in the country, even where we're totally insignificant, but we have a presence in every ward. Now, if you want to kill the ANC quick, just kill those branches deliberately and say they don't matter, that's weak, they're bought, they're bribed, and all those things. Then you'll have no ANC. It will be elitist. Are we happy with the mining charter? The mining charter was presented here. There were discussions, and it is left to the structures dealing with the mining charter in government. But it was presented to us as an organization, both at the level of the Economic Transformation Committee and the officials of the ANC. Now, if Mkogeli ufuna ndithi, hayi pakula meeting officials, this is what we said. We don't normally do that. I can tell you, confirm with you that the Freedom Charter that is under consideration, was taken to the Economic Transformation Committee of the ANC, it was taken to the officials before it went to the cabinet. Happy is always relative.
Thank you very much, SG. We have come to, just before we say that, just again a word of advice, members of the media. Last time when we met, I think sometime in November, there was a lot of stories about what went and what happened inside the meeting. And some of the stories completely were fabrication, and I think deliberately some of the sources misled you. And we cautioned against that because sometimes it undermines the very same freedom of the media to report objectively, fairly, but also accurately. I know that.
Can I give you an example over this weekend?
Let me finish.
Let me give you an example. Over this weekend, Tula says, where is he? An analyst in ENCA is listing people who are going to support Zuma and those who are not going to. And in those who are going to support Zuma in the NEC, it also lists Comrade Mutami, who is not a member of the NEC. Okay, I'm just showing you this question of the freedom that gallop all over.
No, the point I was making, SG, which is correct, is that at the end, people will not believe some of the stories, even some of the channels you report about.
That's precisely why you should allow more questions.
No, the point I'm making is that we have a responsibility, we have got a burden of responsibility as journalists, not just to take what comes from your sources. Some of them deliberately mislead you. I mean, you can be the source. So the point we make is that you may find, for example, in some of the social media lists, which is said who said what, who spoke against, some of the people in those lists did not even say a word.
Just a quick clarity. When you're saying the structures can debate names now, what are you saying to people who are aspiring candidates? Can they now all get up and say, I'm Matthew's close?
No. Nomination will only open in September. Nobody can stand up and say, I'm available. That's wrong and discipline. Thank you very much, members of the media.
Thank you.
We're Ranjane. We are super away.
That was a live crossing to the You're watching SABC News. That was a live crossing to the ANC media briefing on the outcomes from its national executive meeting, of course, underway at Luthuli House in Johannesburg. Now, you just heard the ANC Secretary General Gwede Mantashe just wrapping up that briefing to the media contingent after this crucial meeting. It is the first one since the president reshuffled the cabinet, which was swiftly followed by the country's economic downgrade to junk status. As expected, one of the important outcomes was the decision that branches and members are now free to discuss names of potential candidates they want to elect to the party's December conference. Now, those nominations will open in September this year. The ANC position is that policy must determine leaders and principals must decide the quality of these leaders, and the names need to be tested against these principles. Well, Mr. Mantashe made an earnest appeal for the discussion of these names to be done without defamation, without any kind of ridicule. Now, the NEC has also agreed to the establishment of a commission of inquiry into allegations of state capture after they reflected on what Mantashe called a state of restlessness in South African society. Also coming up this afternoon was grave concern around the spate of